So now that we've set up all of the preliminary details of the project, you saw that we've created the budget, and if you didn't, you want to watch the video before this one. And we're going to just go ahead and replace the place card holders that we set up. Typically, when we are doing the budget, we don't always have items or vendors picked out, right? We're just kind of doing it on the fly or trying to sort and organize the project. But by the time we get to actually going in here and tweaking the place card holders that we put in to now reflect what we want it to be or what we want to price out, right? The next step, you can't propose to a client without confirming what it's going to cost us to deliver that item, right? So to put it in production, we like to get vendor quotes. Okay, it's called the RFQ. If you're new to the industry and you aren't familiar, you'll hear RFQ a lot. Okay, that RFQ stands for Request for Quote. Okay, so right now, us setting up this item is kind of taking it, this is what we're going to take through should this item get approved, right? And if it doesn't, we're going to give them other options until we figure out what it is that they're going to go ahead and approve. So from there, we're going to go ahead and edit this particular item, which is the bedroom to bed. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and select my vendor, and these were the ones that we set up. I did add, maybe I didn't, fabricator. So the fabricator is going to be whoever is building this particular item. A lot of these pieces are custom, and this is no different. When we have it shipped, okay, and in this case it's not going to be shipped, it is going to be fabricated and delivered to our third-party receiving company. I'm not going to do that just yet, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it as blank, okay? But when we move through, as we decide where it's going to actually go, we'll fill that in. But I'll show you why it matters when we're talking about fabric and other components of the bed, okay? So remember how I selected accessories only because it was just by default the first one? I'm going to now change that because this is the labor part, right? He's a fabricator. They're installing, they're putting it together. The room is still the same. The component is still the same. So this is the labor to pretty much get this bed going. You'll see that it did default to the side mark here. Okay, and I'm fine with that. Actually, we'd probably want to add, us as a company. But in through here, we're just going to put, let's see, and you can add as much or as little detail depending on how you like to organize your projects. Me personally, I don't let the client see all the different components. If you like to, you can certainly do that, but I don't. I don't think that they need to know that the fill costs a certain amount. So there are ways to show first component only, which means, in the case where we're dealing with a bed that has a fabricator and is going to be an upholstered bed, we'd have the fabric and fill. So if I wanted the client to see the breakout of the fabric versus putting it all together, I can do that. Usually I don't. I leave it at this is the price and this is what it is. They're already getting a lot of customization and things like that when dealing with custom work. So I just think when you put too much detail, it makes it Googleable. I don't know if that's a word, but it makes it Googleable, and people like to look things up. Okay, so if they think that they can search an image or search, copy and paste and search verbiage, they do. Some of these people have time, and so they just need to know the basics. They just need to know the identifying details, right? We need to know all the identifying numbers, like the SKUs and pattern numbers and things like that for fabric. Okay, so you want to watch that. I'm mindful of that when I teach it also, especially for somebody that's new to the industry. You don't want to make things so searchable because a lot of times it just lacks quality, So that being said, you're going to tweak it to do whatever you want it to be, right? That being said, so labor to fabricate bed, you can, calking, let's see, calking bed. And I usually do like to add COM if you're new to the industry. COM, you'll see that on a lot of furniture or anything upholstered, really. You'll see that even for pillows. COM is cutting of materials. Cutting of materials is basically telling you how much fabric the fabricator needs to create this piece. Okay, so that is an important factor when looking at tons of fabric that are coming in. Oftentimes I'll look at fabric and I just glance at the quantity. So you want to know what quantity you're dealing with. I'll usually glance at the quantity, and I kind of try to remember when I'm looking at a big project, whatever it takes for you to remember what is what, or however you look at your project. I usually am going to use that to determine when I can't figure out where something goes by the side mark. A lot of times that will tell you. Okay, I look at the fabric. So the COM is going to be the cutting of material. So in this case, for this bed, I need 13 yards. Okay. So usually if you're doing the accounting, you're probably not as concerned with that. You should be. Okay. And if you're a designer, the owner, or procurement, or an assistant, this is more so to kind of when you're figuring things out and piecing it all together to kind of help them bring this project to life. These are the details you're going to want to watch for. I do put the item number whenever I do have fabric or anything else. I will put that in here, but on a case, on a piece that is going to be custom fabricated to fit a space, we're going to have very little information. We're going to have very little images because unless we're copying a piece from somewhere else, you're not going to have that, right? Sometimes it's even renderings. So be mindful of that. And, what you see here is basically what the client's going to see, whether they're looking at it online through the client portal or looking at it on a printed piece of paper. Okay. This is client facing. This is vendor facing or internal. Okay. Sometimes if I don't want the vendor to see certain things, I might make asterisks, and you can do what works for you in your business, but I'll make asterisks, and that usually tells everybody that looks at this to go check the notes. Okay. It's an indirect way of saying, hey, there's more to it. Check the notes. Okay. Without saying that. Okay. And in through here, remember how I said copy always? That's because here, and I'm jumping ahead. This is prior to or after pricing. When you are updating, it's basically going to copy it here. Okay, and we'll jump back to that when we get the quote. Okay, so right now we're just providing as much information as we can to request the quote. It's RFQ. Okay. And I'm going to save and close this. And now we technically have the pieces that we needed to send it to our vendor to request the quote. But in this case, I'm actually going to upload the image that I do have, because we talked about it already, and you can see, I'm going to just put it there. Okay, and it's just a rendering, and I just want to show you what that does. I'm going to save and close, and it's just giving them, you know, the rendering that we discussed. So I'm going to save and close that. And now what I can do for this is I can select this. And before I can send a proposal to my client, I need to get the pricing or the quote, right? So I'm going to create an RFQ. And you can change the look of this to something that you like if you don't like this particular one, but this is the one I'm using. And it basically is telling our vendor, like, hey, this is what I need you to price out for me. Okay. And if you're not needing to send it to the vendor, meaning you have an online login, you can skip this step, right? You don't need to request it because you can price it out yourself. These are for vendors that you need to get pricing for. Okay, this is ready to send to our vendor to request the quote. Okay, that's what RFQ stands for, Request for Quote. You can, if you set up the message here, which we didn't remember in the beginning, that's in the settings. Okay, it would have a standard default. We didn't set those up. So that is why it is important to kind of set those defaults up, but we can actually do that before we send this out. I'd rather go back and show you where to do that. Okay, and it will be in through my settings, my company, and here is, this message is going to be the message on the request for quote. Okay, and this message is going to be in the body of the email for the request for quote. Okay, and you can select what you want it to say in the subject line for each section. Okay, I am not going to do that at this time, but I will set these specifics up because you are going to want to use whatever verbiage you select, and some of you want to add certain things to certain forms. Okay, this is where you do all that. Okay, and I'm not going to do that. I'll do that off screen for my stuff, but this is where you will go ahead and do that. Okay. So going back to the item, okay, we're going to go ahead and request for quote for this item. Like I said, you can still change these if you don't like the size of the image or the format. You can play with these and select different ones. Okay, and then now you can either export the PDF. I usually don't. I like everything to be handled within Studio. There's timestamps, and it gets documented for an audit trail. So that is why I always recommend doing everything from within the system. I know people are worried about what the client can and can't see. If that is ever a question or an issue, definitely reach out to me, because I do have a test account, and we can play with them on a shared screen and test it out. But you don't have to worry about that. They're not going to see anything that you don't want them to see. You have full real-time control, and I will go over that when we get to that section. Okay, so I just will do a generic. Please price out the attached per our conversation yesterday. Okay. so that is ready to go. If I wanted to send it from here, which I am. I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. So you can see it did go through. When I go back in and open the item, if we go through codes, you can go down here. Oops, let's get that out. Like I said, everything is going to have the information that we feed it. Well, because I sent it from here, it automatically dated it. And as you complete certain things, which you can see the different sections here for the quote received, lead time, spec date, and all of this information, it kind of just helps as you're doing procurement, expediting, and tracking everything, right? I consider our studio the basic coordination tool, or the biggest coordination tool to coordinate our install day. That's kind of how I look at it. We're gearing up for an event that has 1 or 2 or 3 different install dates, whatever that might be. And so this is how we keep everything organized. Okay, I'm a big believer in setting up processes and protocols so that allow us to communicate without directly communicating. Okay, like those asterisks, and really using these and setting up different reports depending on what you need to look for to accomplish the job that you're responsible of doing. Okay, whatever it is that's your piece of this, there are ways that we can make sure that you get the information and the tools that you need. But again, it starts with putting in as much information as you can when you're working through the system. Okay. If there are questions on anything I've said, you can leave them in the comments below. I do want to point out over here, this CFA. CFA is another term that you'll hear a lot. CFA means Cutting For Approval. It pertains to fabric. Okay. And that means, that we have to approve the specific bolt or lot or whatever it is that the fabric is coming in. So there are a lot of specifics when it comes to fabric. So that's what this stuff is. And it used to be down here with all these dates, but because it's such a major factor, and with the new facelift of Studio, it has moved. A lot of things have moved. I know a lot of people were asking, the old videos still work. They just don't look the same. The processes and everything that I'm teaching are the same in the old videos. The only reason why I'm re-recording these is to address the changes and the updates and the aesthetic improvements that Studio has, as well as the new things that they're launching as they launch. Okay. So that is it on that. Again, right now we've requested our quote. We're waiting for it. When we receive it, usually I will upload that too. Not everybody likes to do that, but you can, and I'll show you where to do that. You can upload files and documents here. Okay. That doesn't mean you don't have to keep them somewhere on your computer or Dropbox. I use Dropbox. But this is one way that you can upload everything. If the vendor sends you acknowledgments, I usually always upload them, and they don't have to be visible to everybody. You can see here that on the images, I could have added way more images, and I can pick and choose which ones the clients are going to see. The vendor, I could even say they can't see any of them. Neither one of them can see it. And then that becomes just an internal thing for us here. Okay. But I do upload everything. I upload the acknowledgments. I upload the quotes. That is the only way that we can kind of confirm what we data entry here at this point. That's how we find it. Okay. So that being said, I'm going to save and close, and stay tuned for the next video, which we're going to post the update from after we receive the quote. Okay, and what happens next.